Tonight, the tennis world is processing one of the most emotionally raw and deeply human moments the WTA Tour has produced in years. What unfolded in the press conference room following Iga Swiatek's exit from a major tournament was not simply another athlete dealing with the frustration of defeat. It was something far more significant than that, and those who were present in that room, along with the millions of fans watching the coverage from across the globe, understood immediately that they were witnessing something that went well beyond the boundaries of sport. Swiatek, the Polish superstar who has carried the weight of being the world's best player for much of the last 4 years, sat down in front of the media and, in a moment that will be talked about for a very long time, broke down in tears. What she shared in that room, the admission that she admitted she was struggling to find genuine joy in the game that made her champion, sent a shockwave through the sport. This was not a routine post-match press conference. This was a young woman at the peak of her professional achievement, confronting something far more complicated than any opponent she has ever faced across the net. For fans who have followed Swiatek's rise from a breakout Roland Garros champion to the dominant force in women's tennis, this moment will feel particularly difficult to watch. She has always been composed, analytical, and seemingly built for high-pressure environments. Her mental strength has, in many ways, been considered one of her defining qualities as a competitor, which is precisely why seeing her sit in that chair with tears falling and struggling to find the words to describe how she has been feeling struck so many people so deeply. The tennis world, and indeed the broader sports world, is still taking it in. If you follow WTA tennis closely and value in-depth coverage of the emotional and human stories that exist behind the rankings and match results, consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you never miss the kind of detailed reporting that gets at the real story of what is happening in women's tennis. To understand why this moment carries so much weight, it is important to have the full context of what Swiatek has been navigating over the course of the past several months. She arrived at this tournament under the familiar cloud of expectation that has followed her everywhere since she first claimed the world #1 ranking. No matter the surface, no matter the draw, no matter the state of the competition around her, the assumption in tennis has always been the same: Swiatek is the player to beat. That is, both the reward of sustained excellence and a burden that very few athletes in the history of any sport have been asked to carry in the way she has. She has been ranked #1 for more consecutive weeks than almost any player in the modern era of the WTA Tour. And every press conference she attends, every warm-up she takes on the practice courts, every interview she gives arrives wrapped in the expectation that she will not only compete, but dominate. What emerged during this press conference was that the pressure of those expectations, combined with what sources close to her team have previously described as an exhausting schedule and the relentless media cycle that surrounds her every move, had been quietly building for some time. She described through tears that she appeared genuinely unable to hold back, a feeling that had become harder and harder to shake as the season progressed. She acknowledged that there were moments, and she made clear that she was not speaking about one isolated night, but about a pattern she had been experiencing, where she would walk onto the court and feel something missing. The motivation, the spark, the pure love of competition that first drove her to dedicate her life to this sport. She admitted that she no longer felt that automatically. She admitted that tennis, at least in those darker recent moments, had stopped feeling like something she enjoyed. The silence in that press conference room, as reported by multiple journalists present, was the kind that you do not often experience in a professional sports setting. Reporters who cover the WTA circuit regularly and who have sat in hundreds of post-match conferences have noted that there was a heaviness to that particular moment that was unlike anything they had encountered. Swiatek has always been candid with the media, sometimes more so than her opponents and peers, and she has spoken previously about the psychological demands of professional tennis. But this was on another level entirely. She was not speaking in carefully managed soundbites or with the kind of distance that athletes often maintain between themselves and the most vulnerable parts of their inner lives. She was speaking plainly and with visible pain about something that she was clearly still working through in real time. The WTA Tour's response to the moment has been measured but thoughtful. The organization has made mental health resources and support a much more visible part of its professional structure in recent years. particularly following the broader conversations in professional sport that have been sparked by athletes across multiple disciplines speaking openly about the psychological cost of high-performance competition. The tour has issued a statement expressing support for Swiatek and emphasizing that the well-being of players remains a priority. But statements aside, what Swiatek's breakdown has really done is force the tennis world to have another honest conversation about what the structure of the sport demands from the people at the very top of it. What makes Swiatek's situation particularly complex is that she has not been visibly struggling on the scoreboard in the conventional sense. She has continued to compete at an exceptional level by any realistic standard. But those close to the game have noticed over the course of recent months that something has felt slightly different. The clinical efficiency that once seemed almost effortless has, on certain occasions, given way to something that looked more like grinding. The joy that used to radiate from her game during her most dominant periods, the way she would celebrate a beautiful winner with a wide smile or pump her fist with genuine enthusiasm, has been less visible. Her team has privately spoken about the importance of managing her workload, and there have been reports that conversations have been ongoing about whether her schedule for the second half of the season needs to be adjusted significantly. The reaction from the global tennis community has been overwhelmingly sympathetic. Former players who have been through their own battles with the psychological weight of professional competition have spoken publicly about recognizing what Swiatek described. Several current WTA players have posted on social media expressing solidarity, without framing it in a way that draws unnecessary attention to themselves. The message across the board has been consistent. This is not weakness. This is honesty. And in a sporting culture that has not always made it easy for athletes to be honest about struggle, Swiatek's willingness to sit in that room and speak with such raw transparency has been acknowledged as something meaningful beyond tennis. From a rankings and competitive perspective, the implications of this emotional revelation are genuinely difficult to predict. Swiatek remains one of the most talented clay court players in the history of the women's game, and her record across major surfaces gives her a baseline of competitive reliability that does not evaporate simply because she is going through a difficult period personally. But in tennis, where margins are razor thin at the top of the draw and where psychological momentum can determine the outcome of an entire match, the state of a player's inner life matters enormously. If she arrives at the next major event still carrying this weight, it will be noticed. Opponents who might once have approached a match against her with a purely defensive mindset may begin to sense an opening. What happens next for Swiatek will depend on a number of factors, many of which exist far from the public eye. The quality of the support around her, the decisions her team makes about rest and schedule management, her ability to reconnect with the parts of tennis that originally made her fall in love with the sport before the ranking points and the broadcast deals and the global scrutiny became the dominant frame through which she experiences the game. Tennis has seen players go through periods like this before and come out on the other side with a reinvigorated sense of purpose. It has also seen players who reached a tipping point and found that the weight never fully lifted. What is certain is that this press conference and the image of Iga Swiatek sitting in that room with tears on her face and an admission on her lips that tennis no longer brings her the joy it once did will not be forgotten quickly. It has already sparked a wider discussion about what professional sport asks of the people who reach its highest levels, and whether the structures built around elite competition are adequately designed to protect the human beings inside them. That conversation matters, and it matters beyond the world of women's tennis. Swiatek has said before that she hopes to play this sport for many more years. The question now, and it is one that no ranking, no statistics table, and no match preview can answer, is what kind of relationship she will need to rebuild with the game before those future years can feel like something she truly looks forward to again.